Welcome to the Denver Gazette Sports Podcast. I am your host, Chris Schmedeke, and today we are brought to you by Applewood Plumbing, Heating, and Electric. They have been serving Denver residents for 50 years. They are the proud sponsor of this podcast and the Colorado Avalanche, which we are talking about today with Kyle Fredrickson. Kyle and I haven't caught up in a while. Kyle, you were hunting. I expected you to have like a big giant beard, but you look all right. And then I
Yeah.
was under the weather for a while as well. So Kyle, it's good to be back with you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I did take a little break from the team, so it took some time to sort of get back into the swing of things. And the Avalanche, they're always interesting if
Yeah.
they're anything. So a lot for us to talk about. But yes, successful hunting trip. I'll bring some jerky into the newsroom at some point. But yeah, glad to be back and honestly glad to see the Avs are playing how we expect them to play. Everyone in a little bit better mood around that dressing room lately.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a bad mood from Coach Bednar there for that was after the Kraken game, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit. But last night they just beat down the Ducks.
Yeah, it was impressive. And it was a third period where they just kind of, saw that there was a crack there, that they had a nice lead and they really exploited it. And, for where this team was at 5 days ago, as you mentioned before, with that Kraken loss to now, the Avs are playing how they expect to play right now. And the way they were able to get off to a fast start last night, very significant. 2-0 lead in that game. In the second period, you think they might crack when Mikko Rantanen's hit with a double minor for high sticking, a 4-minute power play that the Ducks go on, and the Avs kill it off. Not only that, Logan O'Connor almost gets a shorthanded goal, draws a penalty in the process. So the 2 minutes of 4-on-4 in between that power play. So the Avs are just doing the little things right, and I think it's a testament to Coach Bednar and sort of how he handled that adversity against the Kraken. He really called his team out after a real lousy performance, especially by some of the guys we expect to bring it every night. And I think it ignited a fire in this team. The past two games now, looking at the way, sorry, the loss was to the Blues. I said the Kraken. They went and beat the Kraken on the road, came home, and then beat the Ducks handily last night, 8-2. It feels like they're back on track, but of course it's a long season and a lot can happen, and we'll just have to see how a few of these storylines develop.
Yeah, that Blues loss. I mean, you have not seen this team get beat like that. I don't know in how long. Like that's just not that's not their style.
Yeah, yeah. We're used to the Avalanche
Beating
doing
people
that to
like
other
that.
teams, right?
Yeah.
Right. You just kind of beat into submission because late in games you see how down you are, and it's tough to continue playing when that's just such a relentless attack. And the Avs were just making silly errors. I mean, up and down the roster, and I think guys had to do a little bit of soul searching. It's interesting when it seemed like Logan O'Connor is the guy who's holding other players accountable. Your third line winger is a guy who brings it every night, and he kind of had to model to the rest of the team, hey, this is how we play. And we saw a bunch of Logan O'Connors out there essentially last night with a lot of guys, especially from that bottom six, stepping up into big roles. So that was just stuff we didn't see in that loss against the Blues, and so to even that even extends to Alexander Gorgiev, right? I don't know if he's on our list of things to chat about today, but he's really been solid these past two games, in addition to the rest of the team. So I think goalie play a lot of times is a reflection of how the rest of the group is doing, and that makes sense when you think about defensive breakdowns and what it takes to be a complete team. But certainly, as part of what Avalanche fans should be excited right now is no real concern about Gorgiev at this point.
This kind of goes into us talking about how everything kind of has turned around since those two, that Kraken and that Blues loss. Also, I realized they hadn't scored a goal on the road until that Kraken game.
Yeah, it was bizarre how they couldn't score much on the road or do anything on the road in a few of those shutout losses. And that's why I was elk hunting. I got to say, I'm not real sad that I missed some of those games.
Yeah, before you left, we propped up that Vegas game, and
Oh,
then it was
yeah.
just a complete beat down by the Knights. And so yeah. But what I was going to ask you is, and I talked with our colleague Vinny about this with the Nuggets too. The coaches for these two teams, Jared Bednar knew what he was doing when he had that presser and he was kind of pushing some buttons. Malone does the same thing. And it's just so impressive how these guys, Bednar knows his locker room and he knows his guys. And even like, I would say this Avs team there's a lot of new guys on this team. And we talked about that. Like they overhauled this roster a little bit. But man, he just knows what to do at the right time. And that kind of goes into how they've turned it around since those two bad losses.
Right, right. And it's interesting with Bednar and his strategy with the media. I think the thought would be, oh, well, players heard those comments in the media and hey, now they're turning it around. But Bednar's been straight with us to where he says, hey, there's nothing that I'm going to tell you guys that I haven't told the team already. He's
Right.
big on talking to his guys first about things and then addressing it to the media that, the Avs are historically kind of a tight-lipped organization. But that's a reflection of probably what he told the team. And basically, he said that his team was lousy. That was a third period that was maybe the worst period he's watched as a coach, and that's pretty bad when you think about all the hockey that Bednar had to endure in year one there when they I think were a league low in total points at the end of the year. So yeah, I think that's a real reflection of him reading the room, understanding to your point. Hey, there's new guys here, we got to make them understand that we have a championship standard. We hung a banner because we didn't play like this for 82 games, and here we are early in the season, sort of having to have this conversation. So, never kind of any over panic from Bednar for those comments to come out. It's very strong and shows you the direction that he's trying to push his team in right now. But in such a long season, you're going to expect kind of these ebbs and flows. But a lot of new pieces for the Avs right now playing well. The big question is how long can those guys sustain that level?
So let's talk about the bottom six because we've talked about that for a long time that they have to have scoring from other people that are not named McKinnon and Rantanen and Makar.
Right,
And
right,
I guess Val had 2 goals last night. He was
right.
definitely in the fray. But what are some of the bottom six guys that have stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, just look at that third period. It was a real showcase of the Avs flexing their depth and some of those new players. And Ross Colton is a guy that I'll be writing about soon. He's their third line center. I love his goal reactions. They've been excellent all season. Every time he scores, he's screaming his head off. He's cheering on his teammates in a way that I think is refreshing because a lot of times in hockey, guys are more reserved. It might just be a fist pump or something like that. But, I think Ross celebrates like, an NFL player or an NBA player would. Very animated, emotions on your sleeve. And I love that as just a fan of sports. But he's also backing it up with his play. He has a little bit of a point streak going with goals in the past several games here. He plays a very kind of north-south gritty game where he's getting downhill. He's a player that really has stood out. But a player that I'm going to be writing about even for tomorrow's newspaper is Kiviranta. Say that one 5 times
Yeah.
fast. He's been fantastic in a very short amount of time for this team. You might remember he signed a professional tryout contract before the training camp, had a great camp. Everyone kind of raved about his performance, but he ends up getting cut and, doesn't make the NHL roster to start the year. And this is a guy who probably could have taken his chances and joined another club, but I think he trusted the vision the Avs had, went down to the Eagles, played pretty well. Arturi Lehkonen, we'd be remiss not to bring him up during the podcast, but, he crashes into the boards the other night and, he's going to be out for weeks, which means that a forward slot opened. And, Kiviranta was the guy that I think the Avs long-term envisioned for that spot. So, they signed him to a 1-year contract. They bring him up. And I really think he's going to be a stalwart in that bottom six as an undersized guy who's not going to score goals every night. But when he does, you're going to notice because of just his burst and his aggressiveness. I mean, the way that he scored his goal, in that Ducks win, was really just a microcosm of the kind of player he is and the grit that he brings. And weaving through guys, warding off defenders, taking shots at the crease. Just the sort of player the Avs need, who pairs great with a guy like Andrew Cogliano on that fourth line. So, a lot to like about Kiviranta. Fans might remember in the 22 playoffs in the bubble, he actually eliminated the Avs with a hat trick in the Game 7 performance. That
Oh,
was really
that's why I
impressive.
know that name.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's been a minute. So, but that's, that shows you that he's been around. This is not new to him. He's played in more than 150 games with the Stars over several seasons, but chose to get a fresh start in Colorado, and I think it's really starting to pay off, and could be one of those sneaky moves that we look back and say, hey, kudos to Chris McFarland for filling a need with a guy who really is excelling.
Yeah, I was so the Avs are not back on the ice till Saturday. Is that correct? Yeah, Saturday in Dallas
Right,
for a
right. And
big.
I'll be joining them the next game in Nashville. They've got a quick 2-game trip. I'm just doing the one game. I mean, if you're gonna pick a city, Nashville is not the worst place to visit, so I'm looking forward to it.
And but I was kind of looking at the standings. I didn't even realize that Dallas had jumped to the top there. Some of the records of these teams early on are rather ridiculous. Like Vancouver's 12-3, Vegas is 12-3. These teams have gotten off to hot starts in the NHL.
Yeah, it is kind of hard to gauge how good a team is at this point in the year. And I
Yeah.
suppose that's true of the NBA too. I mean, obviously it's the Avalanche feel great about the position they're in, and it's no real surprise that the Stars are playing well. But I think those really are going to be your top two teams. But the way that Jordan Binnington's playing for the Blues, it feels like he's back to being that elite goaltender. Throw out all the stuff about his kind of bonkers personality. That's going to make the Blues contenders, I think, if they can kind of figure out some of their other issues. To have a goalie playing at that elite level means a lot. I mean, just look at what Alexander Gorgiev was doing for this team early in the year on that 6-0 start. So, yeah, I think that it's still a toss up at this point. But with Jason Robertson, the Stars have a lot of forwards who can score plenty of goals. I'm looking forward to some of those division matchups. I won't be on the road for that one, but I'll definitely be tuning in and reporting from home.
Well, we all need more Avs Blues with Binnington. I think we all enjoy that. So I think if he's playing well, that'll be a good thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Any kind of intrigue that you can bring with guys who aren't afraid to be themselves, I will give Bennington that. I think it's good for the league.
So I'm going to drop something on you real quick, and this has been a hot topic. I don't know if you've listened to Altitude lately with this whole who gets the captaincy thing on the
Ah,
end.
sure, sure.
So I just want to get your opinion on it. I mean, Bednar clearly said like, no, Gabe is the captain in his own way on that interview, but I kind of agree with him. Like, if Gabe Landeskog's on the team, he's the captain. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought because I think I'm still learning about like the politics of being an
Yeah.
NHL captain and leadership in the room. But the thought kind of did cross my mind after that Blues loss. Like, man, did the team miss having Gabe in the room? Like, did they need Gabe Landeskog to light into these dudes? Because I do think that when he's healthy, Landeskog is the voice in the locker room and speaks for the players and speaks at his teammates in a way that other guys can't really, just because they aren't Gabe and they don't wear the C. So naturally, with him being gone all year after when the team's not playing well, I think it's easy to go like, yeah, let's put the C on somebody else and reestablish a leader in the room. But I just don't think the Avs see it that way.
Yeah.
And listening to Bednar's comments and kind of just knowing Cale Makar and these other guys, like, yeah, they want Landeskog in there, but it doesn't really matter to them who's wearing the C, because this is still Landeskog's team. As long as he's here, as long as he's in the building, and I don't know if he's even in the country right now, but assuming that he's going to be around and assuming a leadership role and even traveling with the group, Chris McFarland leaned on him for advice, during free agency decisions and had him talking to Tomas Tatar, and trying to lure some of these guys to the team. So he's an integral part of this group, whether he's playing or not. I'm just not sure that it matters all that much for what the product looks like on the ice,
Yeah.
just because there's a lot of guys, who are capable of speaking for the group and do it in a big way. I mean, to me, like Andrew Cogliano is sort of the captain of the bottom six. And after, bad losses, he's a guy who will sit in that room and is not afraid to answer questions. I mean, that's the same thing that Gabe Landeskog did, right? So maybe that's not an every night thing. And there's nights where we all probably wish we could ask Gabe what his opinion is on whatever happens with with the Avs. But yeah, I think that would be reactionary. And if anything, would just maybe cause rift or awkwardness if Gabe comes back, because I do think that despite it being a long shot, if we're realistic, there is a strong held belief in that franchise that Gabe Landeskog is going to be back, that he's going to be an elite player, and that, this is going to be seen as sort of a blip on a very long and good career for their captain, because he won them the cup. I mean, there's no reason for anyone to doubt Gabe. And I think if you assign a new captain, you're almost kind of putting that out there like, well, we're not really sure about this guy. And I just don't think I love that if I'm a teammate or if I'm an Avalanche fan.
Well, and in the Avalanche's history here in Colorado, like what have they had? 3 captains? 4,
Right.
maybe? I
Right.
mean, Sakic, Hayduk, Gabe. Is there somebody else in there that I'm forgetting?
No, I think that's right. And
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
that's a reflection of
so
the
3?
organization, right? They're not going to like overreact and try to change leadership structure on the fly. Like if they're going to select a new captain, it'll be another like Landeskog, right? A youngster who's going to grow into that role. And maybe that's Makar down the line, who's to say in a few years if Landeskog's career is over, that's a very natural decision for the Avs, being his age and what he means to this group. And what he already means as a leader. He's wearing that A for the past couple seasons now. So you love what Makar brings as a leader, but no need to rush that title on him if he doesn't need it right now.
There was 2 seasons where it was Adam Foote as well.
Okay. Okay.
That's the
Good
4th.
research there.
Yeah,
Right.
so it
Okay.
was Sakic, then Foote in 09 and 2010, and then Hayduk, and
Mm,
then Gabe has been the captain since 2012. So
yeah.
I mean, that's a long haul. This organization is stable. It's always
Yeah.
been.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a sign of good leadership
Yeah.
too, when you're not changing over, right? That's definitely a positive sign of culture.
And I mean, and what was Gabe? Was he 19 when he got here or
Yeah,
something like
I'm
that?
pretty sure he was a teenager. He couldn't buy a legal beer at the very least. Now, at
Yeah.
least not in America.
Well, that's hockey for you.
Yeah,
Those guys
right,
playing that
right.
now. All right, what do you want to plug, Kyle? Anything good coming?
Well, I will say I brought up the Kiviranta story. I'm putting the final touches on that as I actually head to practice here as we wrap up the podcast. The Avs will be hitting the road, and like I said, I'll be going to Nashville. I am reporting out a story on Ryan Johansson at the moment. He's going back to some Nashville roots. Been there a long time. I think he played 8 seasons with the Predators. Was very involved with the community. So writing a little bit about that for him to return, all the folks that he helped impact there. I think the NHL does a pretty good job in their community relations department of letting players be charitable. And, he's a guy who's always done that, even with the short time with the Avs, and being a leader and sticking up for his teammates. So, just kind of more of a personality feature on Johansson, and also maybe a call to see what his production is going to be like. Because I think as that number 2 center, he hasn't really been putting up big numbers, especially at even strength, to kind of justify that role yet. So no real panic. He's not playing terrible. He's not making huge mistakes. But that second line does need to start producing.
Talking about the second line center, that seems familiar.
Whew, yeah, put that on repeat. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks for coming on, Kyle. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on Apple and Spotify. Make sure you go to denvergazette.com for all of Kyle's stuff on the Avs and all of the rest of our coverage of pro and college sports. And Kyle, thanks for coming on, and we will probably catch up maybe next week or maybe the week after.
Yeah, I'll report back on Nashville food. I'm a big hot chicken guy, so to get it
Oh,
at the
wow.
source will make me
I
happy.
mean,
So
we could do a podcast with all you guys of like where you've eaten. That could be like a nice
Ooh,
off-season podcast, like best
okay.
places to eat. So
I
take
love
notes.
that. Love that. Yeah,
All right,
will
man.
do.
Thanks for coming on.